Welcome to the Thrive Today podcast. I'm Natalie Bourne, the media host for Thrive Today and the founder of Innovation Meets Leadership. Well, today we are sitting down to have a conversation. We're actually turning the tables a little bit. Yeah, that's right. So Colleen Rouse, our founder, is with us, and we're going to talk a little bit about my article today, which I'm excited about.
I am too. I mean, you are an excellent author, and I love your insights. And so I love this particular article for this edition of Thrive Today. You entitled Built to Last.
Yes.
And so I want you to talk about, from the top, you mentioned kind of a precarious situation you found yourself in with a former boss. So would you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I open the article and I do share some vulnerabilities in this article about a situation I found myself in. I was very young in my career at the time. I was overseas. We had just bought a few companies and we had taken all of these managing directors of these companies out to dinner in Spain. Had a lovely dinner with them. Some of the folks had a little too much to drink. I think they were overserved. And unfortunately, tempers started to flare in the streets of Spain. And so I'm out there, again, very young in my career, and someone says, take a picture. So I grab the phone, take a picture. And as soon as the picture gets taken, one of the guys from another country wraps his legs around my boss and gives him a big kiss. Well, my boss was not happy about it. He was fuming. And because he couldn't take it out on the guy, he took it out on me. So he comes over to me and starts to ream me out. He tells me, I will break that camera. I'm up here. You're down here. And I remember just being like, all I did was point and shoot. And here we are in this crazy situation where I'm feeling completely, small as a little ant and don't know what to do. Furthermore, he gets so upset. He tells me, you're going to Germany tomorrow. Cancel your trip. And so I, quickly as I can, just get out of that situation, get a cab back to my hotel room. And now I'm up all night thinking, what do I do? I've been put in this situation. My boss is mad at me for no good reason. But now I've got to figure out how to navigate the situation and how do I stand up for myself? And I didn't do anything wrong. And how do I navigate through it? So that was I set the scene in this situation, and I kind of just talk about it a little bit because I'm sure that all of us have found ourselves in situations where wrong place, wrong time, right? And so now we're kind of on the hot seat.
In the line of fire and what that means. And I love how you kind of work through that and understanding, okay, what's my responsibility? Because I think when we get into trouble, when we try to solve things that are outside of our responsibility or our scope of influence, and so, staying within that safety reign is good for us in understanding, okay, I can feel the weight of what this other person is thinking and doing, but what is my responsibility?
That's right.
And not allow it to carry more weight than it should.
Yeah. So I remember, going back to my hotel room, just talking to God, saying, okay, God, do I cancel my flight and book another flight and go home? Or do I go on to Germany, even though I've been told to go home? And so the next morning, I knew we would see each other at breakfast, same time, same place. And I'm sitting there eating breakfast. He walks in, sits down at my table, and he's like, so, you going home? And I said, no, I'm actually not. I made a promise to a group of people in Germany that I would come there, I would train them, I would help them this week, and I'm going to carry on with my trip, and I'll see you back in the office on Monday. And the weirdest thing happened. He said, okay, all right. And he just kept eating his breakfast. And so I knew it was a moment where I needed to stand up for myself, not in a disrespectful way, but I needed to let him know the commitment that I had made and that I wasn't going to just down my commitment because of an odd situation that honestly had nothing to do with, had transpired, but that I was going to continue on in what I committed to do.
And you might want to coin a little phrase that says, have no fear of drunken statements.
That's right. Just move forward.
They're gone the next morning.
Right.
So you talk about 3 things that you need to absolutely know, this whole sense of assurity. And you start out with knowing your identity. And, that sounds foundational, but a lot of people are not aware of their truly God-given intrinsic values. So take us through that specific point.
Yeah, well, I can tell you this, being somebody that by day is a consultant, you're constantly going to be challenged on your intelligence, your opinion, your abilities. your agency. People are going to constantly challenge what you know. And I think there has to be an assurity in who God has called you to be. And again, check out the last episode where Colleen and I talk about marketing, because really at the end of the day, we talk about knowing what you truly are wired to do and what you're good at, because oftentimes in business that will be challenged and your feet will be put to the fire on whether or not you truly know what you say you know. And so the first thing we have to know is who we are. We have to know who we are in Christ. We have to know who God has made us to be. And that has to be so much more important than anything else that exists in your life. It's just knowing foundationally who you are. And so even when someone comes to challenge who you are, you have to be able to have that agency to know that before I'm anything else, I'm a child of God, I'm his daughter, and I'm already accepted before the arrows begin to fly.
Absolutely. And, I think it's so important. And we lose sight of the fact that we are sons and daughters of the Most High God. And that is more important than any title we will ever achieve in our lives. So, it's simple, yet it's profound, and it is absolutely has to be the premise of everything that we do.
Yeah.
So let's move on to knowing your craft, because this is where you're talking about your capacity and your capabilities and what you need to dedicate yourself to.
Yes. Well, when it comes to knowing your craft, I mean, this probably would have been a very different conversation with me and that boss if I was failing at work and not turning assignments in on time and not bringing excellence to the table. And so something I like to say and something I like to stand by is that for me, I should make sure that my craft is sound, that I've put in the work. Oftentimes, people want to declare things, but maybe not put the work in behind the scenes of what it takes to actually be excellent and be successful. So I believe we have to know who we are, but then we have to put in the work. In whatever area, whatever you've been called to do, whatever God has gifted you to do it excellently, right? Do it with all your might. And so don't settle for, being 5th best or 10th best. Try to do what you can do with excellence and really learn, be a learner, grow, and really focus on that craft so that when people call on you, you can stand the test of time to say, yes, I'm aware of this, I know it, and I am skilled and have the ability to help you. So I really believe that, especially as we talk to entrepreneurs on this platform, a lot of it is just, nailing your niche, so to speak, knowing what you're good at, standing on that ground and being successful in it.
One of the things I know about you is, and I want to bring this up because criticism plays a role in our development process.
Yes.
And one of the things that I know about you is that you handle criticism well. So talk to us a little bit about the role that criticism plays in helping you to perfect in your craft.
Yeah, it's really interesting if you're going to do anything that's, let's call it customer facing, you're going to receive a lot of criticism. Like it's going to be normal and natural, and eventually you'll get over it and you'll learn to thrive off of it. But, something that I learned really early in my career, whether I liked it or not, is that feedback is a gift, and feedback helps to reorient us. It helps to refocus us. And here's the challenge. There are some people that go their whole life and they don't get a lot of feedback. And it's unfortunate because then they come up with blind spots, and those blind spots prevent them from being effective. So when someone gives you feedback or criticism, eventually, first, it's going to hurt. You got to take that time to say, yep, that hurt. But then take some time to weigh it. Everything that we receive has to be weighed. So that boss on the streets of Spain that evening, I had to weigh that. Was that founded? No, it wasn't. Okay. Was there anything I could have done differently that I could think of to create a different result? Maybe not taking the picture, but that was about it. So I had to weigh that feedback and say, is that even right? Is it even true? And once I was able to say no, then I could orient myself on what I needed to do next. So often when criticism comes to us, we either immediately dismiss it or we're so hurt that we just avoid the person altogether. But let's take some time away, step back and look at that criticism, weigh it and ask, and then what do I need to do differently?
Absolutely. And honestly, in ministry and in what I'm doing now, it is, people expect to just be able to voice their opinions, and they're not always kind. And so I think this whole motto of being, having a thick skin is so important, but we have to still have a soft heart.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the condition of our heart has everything to do with our ability to endure and you're talking about building something to last.
Yeah.
We can't ignore our heart condition.
That's
so
right.
I think that just understanding this is the process that I'm going to force criticism down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to not just cast it aside. I'm not going to retaliate.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually process it in such a way that it's going to end up being beneficial for me.
That's so powerful. And I want to add this one thing. I had a colleague that if he felt like things were going off the rail, he would just try to swoop in and take over everything. And it got on my nerves to a point, but finally I was like, I need to call this guy. We need to talk. So I called him and I said, I want to give you some advice on how to work with me. I said, if you see things and you feel like they're going off path, I said, invite me into a conversation with you to talk about it versus trying to take something from me. I said, what do people do when you take something from them? They fight. So what does somebody do when you come alongside them and, kind of lock arm in arm, right? You're fighting the problem, not the person. I said, don't step in front of the problem and become the new problem. Instead, come side by side and let's talk through it. Be a thought partner for me. But what you view as helping is actually hindering our relationship. And so part of criticism, too, is actually gaining the words that you need to speak to someone else to help them understand how to best work with you. And so that was a crucial conversation, but I felt it was very powerful to help him understand, like, hey, I'm willing to receive anything you have to say, but it's not about what you said, right? It's about how you said it.
Absolutely. That's a valuable life lesson that you just gave us right there, free of charge. So let's move to the third one, because this is a very important point. Know that you are not a victim. In fact, I want to read directly out of the magazine because you give a quote here by Sandra Blakesley. She reported in the New York Times an intriguing experiment aimed at understanding how scars influence self-perception and social interactions. And it was conducted by a group of researchers. The study involved participants with visible scars who had their scars professionally concealed with makeup before attending job interviews, while women without any scars were temporarily given fake scars for the same interesting experiment that they set up. So talk to us about the results and what that means for each of us.
Yeah, I love this experiment. And one of my colleagues, Chris Green, told me about this. And as soon as he told me about the story, I was like, I have to go research this more. It's so powerful. But one of the things that ended up happening is the people that had the fake scars added, right before they walked into the interview, the makeup artist said, oh, let me touch that scar up a little bit more. And they actually removed it. So walking into that interview, the person that didn't have a scar and now had a fake scar, they thought that scar was still there. So when they walked in, you'll notice that when they came out of the interview, they said, that person was staring at my scar. That person was judging me through the lens of my scar. That person just treated me differently because of my scar. And I know if the scar wasn't there, they wouldn't have treated me like that, only to find out that no one actually had scars. And so what tends to happen is when we do have a scar, we start to view everything through the lens of the scar, making ourselves a victim. And this is such a powerful thought that as leaders, we're going to get scars. We're going to have people that hurt us, that say mean things to us that are unfounded. We're going to have people stab us in the back. We're going to have people turn on us, and for no apparent reason. We may not even know why they're not talking to us anymore. They're just not talking to us. And so what's so hard is to not then see yourself and your work and your worth through the lens of all of your scars. And so this was such a powerful story because I think it applies to each and every one of us. And so constantly I'm asking myself, what is the lie that I'm believing in this situation that's preventing me from being able to move forward? Because sometimes it's just so natural and innate that we're viewing ourselves through the lens of the scar that we don't even realize it. So sometimes when I'm dealing with a tough situation, I have to go to someone else and say, I handled this like this. Was that right? And they're like, hey, you know what? I don't know that I would have done it that way. And I have to say, okay, just tell me more. Because sometimes I'm viewing things through the lens of my scar, not through the lens of what that person actually meant. And unfortunately, we all do it. It's a blind spot, but we get better through feedback, through vulnerability, through finding someone safe that we can talk to about these things and asking them to hold up the mirror. Because when we look in the mirror, that scar is not actually there. But for us, it's like we're living our life through that scar.
Oh, that is so good because, I mean, we've all had things happen to us in life, negative experiences. And so we were a victim in an incident, but we don't need to adopt a victim as an identity.
That's right.
And so clearly understanding that, okay, how is this going to shape me? And, one of the ways that it shows up that's really interesting is and you already discussed it, is how your imagination portrays the scene.
Yes.
And so I can remember having some correspondence with someone and over LinkedIn, and they had expressed a lot of excitement in what I was producing. And then I responded back to them, so we're messaging back and forth. And then there's this lengthy period of time that there's crickets, right? And I'm just wondering, okay, they're not really interested after all. What did they think? And
What
so
did I
where
say?
did my
Yes.
imagination going negative?
Yep.
And so I just have learned to stop that and to say, you know what, Lord, you are the only one that has access to my imagination, because this is the place where we are creative. This is the place where we solve problems. So we have to guard. When the Bible talks about guarding our heart, it includes what's going on in your imagination. And so I retracted all of that, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to wait. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, I get a response from them. They're apologizing. They had had a death in the family, not immediate family, but so, it's called, Valerie Burton has a name for this, where we take our imagination to the excess. And I can't recall what her statement was right now, but who has access to your imagination? And you really need to learn to rein your thoughts in, to think on whatsoever is pure and lovely and true and of a good report, right?
Yes.
And from that standpoint, this will help us from avoiding that victim mindset.
That's right.
So, all right. So give us some closing thoughts on this, because this is such an excellent article, and I highly recommend you dive into it and read it. But give us some closing thoughts here.
Yeah, I think about the title of this article, Built to Last. And it didn't mean built to last in that job. It meant built to last in life. And I think that so much of our journey, we're having these experiences that should actually be building us and shaping us and motivating us and calling us into who God's ultimately called us to be. But ultimately, we have to go through trials to get there. And nobody wants to go through trials. Like, I feel like we're either going into a trial or coming out of a trial in life, right? But these moments build us if we'll allow them to. And by allow, I mean to go deeper, to search the reason behind why this is happening, and even how I'm perceiving what's happening to me, and getting God's lens on that. And so often we just allow life to happen to us. But when we're built to last, we take that time away to really look at the situation, look at the circumstance, get help, surround ourselves with wise counsel, and then allow that situation, whether you had anything to do with it or not, to allow you to grow deeper and stronger as a result of it.
That's excellent. So I hope you have enjoyed this episode. I know I have, getting an opportunity to interview you, and that you are sitting in the hot seat. So thank you for everything that you shared today. And why don't you close us out?
Yeah, well, absolutely. This has been my joy and pleasure to be with you. And ladies, we want you in our community. So we want you to head over to thrivetoday.com to learn more. Also share and like this episode. Share it with a friend. I recently had a colleague of mine, a former colleague, say, hey, I listened to the, I don't know how I came across it, but I listened to the episode where you were talking about being in male-dominated industries, and everything you were saying was resonating. We had this great conversation. So you never know who needs to hear this episode. So share it, like it, and subscribe across all your platforms. And as you live your life, we want you to do it with leadership, community, and strength. And don't forget to thrive. We'll see you next time.